So in 2011, I had a lot of time on my hand. I sat here and I raised a kid, and I started thinking about the political schemes and stuff. And I was like, well, I want to run president. I want to use these social media platforms to get engaged in our political thing. So I started making up my one safe trade, transit, insurance, commerce, sales tax, appropriation, accountability, infrastructure, prepaid dividend bearing system to to be a sales tax versus the discretion of the government employees that we seem to have to live in an authoritarian community where they can strip you of all your rights, insinuate you do this, insinuate you do that. And let me tell you the story. So, anyhow, I had my sales tax system, and it was going to eliminate property taxes and the association with insurance companies and the forced association with all these entities, including attorneys, because the attorneys and the discretion of the judges and stuff are all corrupt. Now, we need a progressive liberty system that allows kids to get a debit card at 10 years old and participate with spending money and earning rewards and incentives for spending money. And then when they get older, they get another stage of progressive liberties, which is the right to vote and live on your own, which I think live on your own and right to marry should be allowed at 15 for couples, and at 17 you're allowed to move out of your parents' house. And then at, I mean, just all these steps that we don't have. Drinking 23, and at 30, instead of just getting that debit card that gives you the dinner once a day if necessary, you start getting retirement rewards and stuff. Anyhow, it's a progressive liberty system. So in 2013, after sitting here and being blacked out, making multiple videos season up, one thing or another, making what I write delete, my videos delete, and I've been getting frustrated. They've been messing with me the whole time, blocking all of our continuity off of the internet. So I started calling and asking representative systems to get us concrete, solid, secure avenues to be able to form a consensus of representation, because this obstructionist representation system is what gives way to the regulations of the insurance company. So anyhow, I've had a whole bunch of backlash from that. They've tried to abduct my child on multiple occasions. They've tried to alienate me from participating with my child on multiple occasions. They are nonstop harassing and bullying and terrorizing me as a parent. They said I communicated 9 felony accounts of communicating threats in 2013. I never, ever, ever was even out of bed that day. I didn't even have a cell phone. I had layers and layers of plausibility because I didn't do it. And the assistant superintendent implemented me, and I wasn't even out of the bed yet. But that didn't stop the law enforcement from harassing everybody in my community and harassing me at my job multiple occasions for 8 months or longer, probably current. And that was in 2013 that was initiated. I sent my son to a daycare. They thought I was an easy mark because I was podunk, loud little piece of shit car. And they assaulted my son, a foster care provider, hit my son in the face with a door. And then the next day, I just happened to take him over to my sister's because I was going to have a 3-day weekend. So I took him over there Thursday night. I started drinking. And then I got a call Monday morning from a clinical professional terrorist social worker, Jeff Lee, and he says he has to do a wellness check. Well, so I get my shit together and I call him and I tell him that my kid's over at my mom's and my sister's. Let's go over there and do it, okay? Because he was real persistent. And so we did, and we walk in, the kid's like, "Hey, Dad." And I'm like, "All right, Jeff, do you see marks on that child where I've been choking him like they're alleging?" And he's like, "No." And I said, "I didn't think so. We WrestleMania and we have some fun, but there's no choking. This is a soundbite that they have cultivated a conversation with. And Jeff Lee, the social worker, was on his way out, and I'm like, hold on a minute, Mr. Lee, what is that bruise on my son's face? And so I asked my son later, I said, how'd you get that bruise? And he said, well, Aiden's mom hit me with the door. Well, Aiden's mom is a foster care abductor who abducted Aiden and had him going to the daycare. And my son was a lack match for Aiden, so they would have abducted them both together. That's why they made that insinuation. If my son had went to daycare that day, they would have abducted him into custody. They would not maintain custody because I am not the podunk drunk that my car represents. I'll do anything for my child and my family and my friends and my neighbors. I've done proof that way before the generations of internet. Anything, including advise them against bad things. So, that being said, they tried to abduct my child then. So then I called the school board and I was like, well, I need a seat for my son in the local elementary schools. Preschool, it starts at this age. So I'd like to enroll my son. Oh, we don't have a seat. I was in a desperate situation. I wasn't podunk, but I was running out of funds. So I'm like, look, you can't tell me that somebody that's a permanent resident that has Medicaid food stamps and you guys don't even know that he exists and haven't appropriated a seat for him, haven't facilitated the facilities with the adequate monetary amounts to facilitate the need. What did you do with the money? Is your salary taking up all the money that was the appropriations to facilitate the need for this child to go to preschool? So anyhow, I fussed like that a little bit, and one morning I woke up and there's like, I can't remember how it started, a sheriff's deputy or a Boone PD and an SBI agent and an investigator showed up saying da da da. I'm like, I don't have a cell phone. I wasn't out of bed. There's my kid. I have no reason to threaten anybody. What good would that do? And I didn't have a reason, and I don't threaten people. I speak my mind, but this was absolutely something conjured up by the assistant uh, superintendent or the teenagers across the street. I don't know where the cell phone signal came from, but they interrogated and harassed me and bullied me for months. Ran off all my girlfriends and just ruined my social life and upset me. So I went to calling people. I don't have my notebook with me right now, but I've showed you guys the photographs and the pictures. I raised Cain all the way up to the top and got a letter from Obama. Virginia Fox sent me a cover letter. I went through every means, first off, to get that daycare that was a human trafficking abduction cult shut down, and they didn't. They operated free. Last I checked, the girl that was running it, trying to abduct my child, was still running it with immunity after putting a visible a visible bruise on my son's face and calling social services on me to abduct my child for either stem cell or just basically human trafficking to the foster care system to create grant mining caseloads. Whatever it is, it's corrupt. It needs to be shut down. So I fuss at them and they get to run rampant. There's no sanctions on these operators. Oh, their license, blah, 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 blah. Dude, they actively groomed my son talking about, daddy, you choked me. I'm like, what? Okay, whatever. I didn't pay him no mind. I didn't choke him. I didn't hurt him. We wrestled. And yeah, okay, whatever. We wrestled. But I did never put a bruise. The people who put a bruise on my child has no consequences when a complaint's made. The people who did it, the operators of a of a business, has immunity because they're licensed through the clinical professional terrorist crew of government employees in the state of North Carolina, Watauga County. So anyhow, I didn't have all this up to my mind. I mean, I wouldn't call them clinical professional terrorists at this point. I was just saying they were trying to abduct my child and they need to be shut down and that young lady's license needs to be taken and all this stuff. Where's her supervisor? Where is an appropriately aged 40 to 50-year-old supervisor of these care providers? Because they need it. They must have it. You can't give somebody credentials going through college courses, learning how to sign and check the damn boxes and learning procedure over science, because science can't just be taught. It has to be experienced. You have to have a lifetime of experience to be able to implement the science of psychiatry. You can't just go to school and get a doctorate degree because you know what boxes they're wanting you to check because you've studied their course. That's absurd. Get straight A's in any class that I want to study and not have to really excel at any of them. So, anyhow, finally get preschool. Get my son in school while they're harassing shit at him. Whatever. Then I'm really ramped up because nobody wants to allow my videos to post. I can't sell the United States on it's called a tourist tax in most other countries, but it's just simple a sales tax that does all the appropriations for the civil infrastructure, including law enforcement and the roads, because they neglect the roads. I mean, we're riding around and there's potholes everywhere, and they don't give a shit. And they still demand a ransom. And meanwhile, they're getting themselves as raises while the minimum wage is and leaves everybody needing grant money from the federal government called food stamps, Medicaid, HUD. All those caseloads get grant money from the federal government, and it is a stacked house of cards that the North Carolina state and most states in this union keep so many residents at a minimum wage that they cannot live. It's not supposed to be a livable wage. It's supposed to be an entry level position wage, according. So you're supposed to stop living when you start working at the entry level wage. No, people who go to school and get out of school are thieves. That's all they are. They don't provide a commodity. They are set up here to be administrators, and now they're doing mental health armies to harass future generations of your children and to game these children at the high school while the judiciary lets dope dealing narcs entrap high school and college kids. In my community, I can personally testify to. They give plea bargains. They're talking about plea bargains. All you got to do is pay your lawyer, and the lawyer will look at the judge, and the judge will look at the lawyer, and then the judge will say, "Did he pay you, Your Honor? I mean, did he pay you, counsel?" And the counsel will say yes, and then the judge will say, "Well, we don't need to hear from the witnesses." And Mr. Grigg, it don't matter who hit you. It didn't do no permanent damage. You're fine. I'm aiding and abetting a assault and battery. Now that's another story for down the road. So anyhow, he's going to school, but it always quits 2 hours before I get off work in most of the population, forcing us to do another transaction with a third party to facilitate the rest of our workday. And they had it they're gaming it. The state of North Carolina, the Board of Education is gaming the system that says you have to pay a separate fee. And if you don't use these services, we will take them away. We must have you using these services, and we must force you to go to school where we can get access to your child and put your child in a mental health stranglehold so we can have a lifetime patient. I'm fucking pissed, people. Very fucking pissed. I can't get away from it. They have us enslaved. I didn't go to school. That makes me a slave. Did you know that? Me and my offsprings are enslaved to the entitled authoritarian administrator. Fucking college fucking graduates. Fuck you, motherfucking thieves. Now, so I'm having to deal with this third party entity. Finally, I find a babysitter that he can get off the bus and everything. So anyhow, then he's going to school and they're not teaching him nothing. Just like right now, I'm getting 3-letter words. And they're not giving him any kind of challenging information at all. And then next thing I know, they're holding him back a year. Well, I'm like, well, if you had instructed him and given him material, I'm trying to let them instruct this child because I never went to public school. And evidently, the dumbing down of this nation that started with the compulsory attendance laws after the compromise of World War II, that the United States adopted the Persian model because they knew how effective it was to brainwash the Germans into perpetrating genocide. The United States adopted the Persian, and everybody has to wake up before the sun gets up. It's fucking slavery, United States residents. You need to know you're a slave and you're so fucking enslaved that you're scared to speak up. I didn't go to public school. I'm not scared to speak up. And in the end, I will be justified and glorified because God has sent me to fucking tell you because I'm here, ain't I? All right, then. Now, so I moved them to another school in town. Well, the teacher there kept taking my son out of the classroom, not instructing him in his literacy, but taking him out of the classroom, referring him to Mrs. Jensen, where she groomed him for 4 months nonstop, harassed my son at least once or twice a week, bringing him down, acting like he's having problems because he's tired. Of course he's tired. The fucking commie cocksucking government employees have forced association laws to deprive you of sleep, and it takes years to heal after you've been deprived of sleep. If you wake up before the sun comes up, you are going against hundreds and hundreds of years of evolution. People do not, some farmers do. Old men get up before 5 o'clock. You know why? Because they can scrog their old ladies before the kids get up. You know, that's why they get up at 5 o'clock. Old farmers got up at 5 o'clock. Not because. And maybe to milk the cows before the cows run out. To beat the cows before the cows take off the pasture. I don't know. But it's not natural, and I know it's not natural because through my 20s and into my 30s, unless I had some dumbass fucking job, I never got up before 7 o'clock. I didn't get up until the twinkle of the light from the sun got me up. So anyhow, they groomed my son for 4 months. They kept taking him out of the classroom, grooming him, and then they called in a meth addicted, rehabilitated, not even a rehabilitated, currently a meth addicted, rehabilitated narc that had been in this community for 15 years, narking as a profession, shooting dope in her toes, showing her pussy to overaged men and trying to entrap people since she was 15 years old. Yeah, I was over 20, and she's got her damn shit hanging out, trying to show it to everybody, trying to get them entrapped, shooting dope into her toes, trying to get people entrapped. And then when that game got old, she started becoming an intake worker for the fucking social services. So the school calls in their meth addicted, rehabilitated social worker to abduct my child with a false petition that states that he was deathly afraid of me everywhere but he said he was deathly afraid of me everywhere but the grocery store. Now look, he was having a hard time. He had hurt his belly and it was sore and it had to be rubbed every day to stimulate drainage. And he had a tooth that was about that long that was coming out. And it was under the said conditions of the compulsory attendance laws that he was not allowed to sleep. And it was immediately after Christmas, so we were off schedule anyhow. And it was the second day back from Christmas vacation, and he was really knowing what was going to happen because I could tell in his demeanor. Having to associate with a third party, forced to associate with a third party, is absolutely slavery, and they adopted it in 1942. And you are the byproduct of generations and generations of mental abuse. And then after they did that, they forced me to take an assessment. And then they forced me to take parenting classes. And in that parenting classes, they talked about the ACEs. They said, well, have you been abused here? Have you been abused there? In your home, out of the home, in your home, da-da. And I said, well, wait a minute. The only abuse I had is when I was a child. The cops would come to my house and arrest my dad every time he moved a vehicle from the parking spot by the road down the driveway. A state trooper would pull him over and harass him about it. And then if that wasn't good enough, they finally just made it a no parking zone, the traditional parking spot for the property. Now, then we ran a recycling business and they forced us to erect a barricade that they could opaque so it wouldn't hurt their eyes as they drove by. And then they didn't, that only starved me down a little bit. Then they decided they wanted to take my home with them in that domain so the people down the road could benefit fucking and make a killing and get 3 times salaries than the minimum wage in the state. They used a socialist mechanism to further capitalist industries down the road over my best interest. They destroyed my Garden of Eden for their best interest over this child's best interest. They bulldozed his whole community as they lined their pockets miles down the road. And I'm going to fucking have their fucking jobs because of that alone. But anyhow, they had me do this ACEs. And that is where the aces in my life came from. They're motherfucking corrupt motherfucking piece of shit with their narrative. Global warming, cow farts, killing us. They are the backbone that has prevented forest fires across this nation everywhere but California. If you had cattle, if you had wildebeest, if you had buffalo, you wouldn't have this massive deforestation caused by wildfire. Cow farts ain't gonna hurt. If it's not a cow fart and it's a microorganism this big farting, everything in the existence on the face of this planet that is living excretes the gas the methane in one way or another. Now, chlorophyll and there's a bunch of different shit that everything excretes something. And whether you burn that log in a fire or that log sits out here and decays, it is still producing a certain level of energy. And no matter what industry you're against and what people you're trying to rid yourself of, another microbe organism, or the bigger, the greener. The bigger, the better, because the bigger organisms put off a more manageable byproduct than small microorganisms. It's better that you can see. Anyhow, it's just let shit grow, no matter what it is, whether it's a cow or a cucumber. They all put off shit as they rot and decay. No matter what, thank God the earth is a living organism. Unfortunately, we're not being very good stewards, and we have to. Now, so I went through this fucking sham wow motherfucking these authority. Okay, after they abducted my child, they forced me to a judiciary. And I'm like, well, I don't need this stinking lawyer. She's like fucking 20 something years old. Don't matter what she's learned. She needs to go the fuck away. Your Honor, I never punched. They said I punched my son in the stomach. I was punching my son in the stomach. No, I was not punching my son in the stomach, Your Honor. Did they find any bruises when they did a medical exam? We haven't done a medical exam, Your Honor. If a child states to you that he had been punched in the stomach, you should take the child immediately to a physician. Why didn't you take him to a doctor if he reported physical injury by being punched in the stomach? Makes sense, right? Did you, I believe he said it, but I believe he said it one little time. I said, well, he didn't get punched in the stomach. I was rubbing a mark he has on his belly. And you sons of bitches are pieces of shit, basically. And then I asked her on the stand if she knew me from anywhere before this happened. I didn't even recognize the girl at this time. She said no. So, yes, she does know who I am a lot better than I know her because she was younger. I was already full grown. I know full grown people don't change that much. And I know she's tried to entrap me several times along her career. She's solicited stuff. I've had to give her rides before. They were trying to get somebody else that was drunk onto the road by calling him. But gladly, I was there and I was sober, so I did the driving. When you're on God's team, grace will show you the way. I, I don't know why I was so fortunate to be there to prevent such things. But anyhow, so they didn't like the fact that I called them out and they were screwed because they really were lying and they had groomed my son for 4 months before they tried to abduct him. Now, remember, the reason why everybody's so fucking pissed is because I want to get rid of the third party in our lives called insurance companies, representatives, and forced compulsory attendance laws. That leads to this scenario right here where my internet's not even secure because of red flags. Okay, red flags are bad, very bad. They rob you of due process. Putting sanctions on people's internet without confronting them and giving them due process is the same thing. And when you use your discretion as a government officer who sworn to give every complaint the due process it deserves, and you don't, you are treasonous and you deserve the firing squad. If you try to alienate parents from their children, disrupting their personal happiness, you are treasonous. You deserve the firing squad. Yeah, that's the fact of the matter. I already said this on a social media video, and if you take offense to that, or whatever, you shouldn't be running human trafficking scams using the school to give access to clinical mental health workers to groom children for abduction by Children Protective Services and being sustained, and you shouldn't allow that action to be sustained by a judiciary that gives plea bargain and sanctuary status to dope dealers to go out here and entrap high school, college kids, and unsuspecting parents to maintain a caseload. You shouldn't have compulsory attendance laws that forces people to give up their sleep, that makes them more prone to be drug addicts and not have any common sense and deductive and inductive reasoning to defend themselves against being entrapped by big shot dope dealers that can have it all, flaunt it all, not get in trouble for it all, act like they got a bunch of money to cover their ass, but really what they are fucking informants, and they can give you drugs and then call the cops on you and have a caseload and get a boy on their back. I've had them. They're persistent with distributing these drugs. They are all over the job site in the schools, always offering you drugs. And yes, I fucking like recreational substances when they're clean and pure, but they're allowed to distribute poison as well. So I've often said no. I love mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms. I love good, clean acid, and I love good, clean amphetamines, and I love good grade cocaine. Yeah, I do. I haven't had or really even experienced any of this stuff in a little over a decade right now. I don't like, oh yeah, I like heroin too, just a little bit, and opium, but I've never had any good, clean opium. Matter of fact, the only opium I had was watered down, and didn't do quite nothing. But all these good, clean substances I had during my time at the college and in the, high school, college kids I was once upon a time. I had some bad stuff too, bad acid that was cut and poisoned and would draw you up and was not the best experience. And then there's methamphetamines. Now, amphetamines is one thing. Methamphetamines is a filthy byproduct of the black market. The black market, which the judiciary deliberately cultivates by giving sanctuary status to drug dealers and human traffickers. A black market that is nothing more than the United States government's own baby creation. Without the prohibition and stripping the citizens of their ability to pursue their own personal happiness, there'd be no black market. If they would take these substances and put these substances in the liquor store where they're clean and pure and you can only have so much of it at a time, we would have no more black market to traffic weapons through. That's what they want. Every one of these weapons that they send out, they just did a scandal with Obama. He damn sent some damn weapons down to Mexico or something, and then boom, they started getting used on corrupt activities here. We can shut these mechanisms down if we alleviate the symptom that the government of the United States has compromised and created since the conclusion of World War II, when they adopted the Persian education system to brainwash you. Then they adopted the cocaine and marijuana epidemics and started with the prohibition, knowing that from the prohibition of alcohol, the ramifications is death. Black markets cultivate death, and they want death. They don't want to let us stay at home where we don't do destruction to our ecosystem. They want you dead. And they got these states like North Carolina that use the residents for medical testing. This is a medical state where they do clinical tests, and they use high school kids. I've been the subject of a study or two from the college students, so I know this for a fact. They use people to do their clinical tests, and then once they these have a established treatment regimen, they patent it, and then they charge a ransom for everybody without ever giving royalties to the patients. All this could change. All this could be better. But this internet and this email has not been provided by good representation system in the United States, and it is compromised to being edited and blocked. So this is me signing off because I can't use this internet no more, and I have to keep this. I got to get this conversation concrete. It's absolutely ridiculous that there's a bunch of capitalists using this socialist system to just push residences around at their discretion. We're going to get rid of the discretion of these government employees. We need the constitutional process. If they think they got the discretion to wipe away people's due process, I mean, anyhow, I get tired talking about this shit. I'm going to go forward without rehashing these instances and just get back to my sales pitch. Because if I can get a new clean email and one good sales pitch video that's all encompassing of the sales tax system to get rid of the clinical professional insurance companies, mental health industry scam, property tax scam, and government employee scam where they got 4 times what a minimum wage employee can make, and the regulations force that employee to take that shit job because they're going through a adjudication and assessments, and job, housing, and a car are being held over their head to get their children back. They're being traumatized, forced to work at a Best Western for $7.25. You cannot afford a home on $7.25 an hour. The school government employees are behind the people and the residents of the community living in poverty, even making double minimum wage to $15 an hour. And then you having to pay this high rent or mortgage, you're still in poverty. And that's where they want you. They want you. See, I had an employer, and all winter they'd starve me, and I'd have to be on food stamps. They'd let me work like 3 hours or an hour. Be like, oh, I got stuff to do, and then I'd spend $20 to get over there, and have to borrow $20 to get home because we only worked for 1 hour. And then they hire contractors and stuff to do the same jobs I'm capable of doing, and pay them $800 for about 4 hours worth of work. That should be illegal. I'm not going to just turn a blind eye, and I'm going to call it out. And I want to be a not somebody goes out here and researches stuff, but a host that asks questions. I just want to ask questions. I just want to host town hall meetings and ask questions. And I want a social media platform where every line item of legislation is posted the day that it is presented in the House of Representatives, where I can push nay or yay for myself without an obstructionist third party that's capable of selling out our consensus to a lobbyist for any monetary. It's so bullshit. Anyhow, look for me on another social media platform because AirHeadBoone has been robbed. Have fun.